Finally, since July 2025, when we heard that Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz were under investigation and suspended, we finally have a conclusion. Today, Jeff Passan, as he typically does, sent out a tweet breaking: Cleveland Guardians pitchers Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz have been indicted by prosecutors in Brooklyn for the host of charges related to a scheme of rigged bets on pitches thrown in MLB games. Ortiz was arrested in Boston earlier today. Clase is not currently in custody. He goes on to say Clase and Ortiz lay out an alleged scheme for the pitchers to intentionally throw a ball so bettors could wager on pitches for balls and strikes. It started, prosecutors say, in May 2023 with Clase, and then later included Ortiz. Dan, it's your team. We'll let you start. I'm going to pull up the video of what kind of sparked this whole thing, and then we'll all kind of give our thoughts on it and go into the Athletic article here in a bit. But go ahead, Dan.
So obviously, there's been a lot of drama surrounding this for months now, as Eric alluded to. Um, and it always kind of felt like this was probably the end of any Major League Baseball for either of these individuals, Clase and Ortiz. And I think we're just drawing that into more and more plain view as more news comes out. And I am a little surprised it came out when it did. I thought for sure we'd get more information, maybe like a Friday after Thanksgiving, like the most dead period time they could possibly find. This is good enough, it seems like. And I imagine maybe the federal government had something to do with the timing as well. It sounds like this information came from the feds as opposed to MLB. Um, one of the things I've heard just kind of browsing around, I was taken by surprise by this today. I was running some errands and stuff, got ready to get on here about 45 minutes ago, and whoa, saw the news. One of the things I've seen alleged, though, is that, Class A was amazing in 2024, ERA of 0.69, and then was awful in the playoffs. And I've seen it from multiple people of, oh, he was throwing the playoffs last year, all this kind of stuff. And there's nothing to back that suggestion. There's nothing to say that that was even possibly the case at all. In fact, it probably would have come out in the investigation. But now that you've opened up the door for that kind of impropriety at all, minds can wander and speculate on it whatever they want. And it's why this is such a poison pill situation for the sport in general, is that one little impropriety is not, there's no such thing. They're all big improprieties because they lend themselves to any possibility out there as negative as you can think of.
So
The fact that he was doing this for 2 years is new news. It's incredible to me. Um, and it's just scary. This is I don't know how close anybody's been following the NBA side of things. This is the baseball version of what Terry Rozier was doing, where he let people know he was going to exit the game early because of an injury. So everybody bet the under. This is like that, except it's, hey, I'm going to throw a ball for the first pitch of the inning, except this is even easier to hide. It looks weird when a guy leaves a basketball game 5 minutes in with an injury. You can hide a ball one really well. And sometimes somebody will swing and miss and mess it up for you. But man, it's a lot to consider. The one other thing I saw when I was kind of looking at this earlier today is there's at least one instance where they successfully, I think Ortiz in this case was the pitcher, but he made $5,000 on a called ball to start an inning, and Class A got a finder's fee, apparently 5,000 off of that too. And I've seen a lot of people go, "Oh, they did this for 12 grand, or they did this for $10,000." No, I did the math on this, and it's still not all that much. But if Clase purposely threw a ball for every appearance he made since the start of 2024 and did it successfully, the most he would have made was $610,000. That is not even the league minimum right now.
I mean, he makes that in like a month.
Yes. So beyond everything else here, I don't know what this man has going on in his life that he felt like he needed to make this money. He doesn't seem like the kind of person that makes good decisions. Don't forget, this is an individual who missed a season due to steroid use as well. Um, Maybe he needed the money badly. I don't know, but it
I
seems like a really poor decision to. He had a lot of money coming for him on the open market someday if he could just keep his nose clean, and
Well,
he couldn't keep
he
his
had a
nose
lot of
clean.
money coming if he would have just like in the next 3 years anyway. I mean, I know they're team options,
I
but
mean, even on his team-friendly deal, yeah, he has a team-friendly deal with the Guardians. Had perhaps now, but even that is in the millions. Like it just doesn't sound like a guy that makes very good decisions in his life. And
so
I wonder with this, and this is something we talked a little bit about the money and the amounts of money. To me, I wonder if it is about the money. I wonder if perhaps something else is going on in this situation. I wonder if perhaps one of these players could have been being threatened. Perhaps one of these players could have been being blackmailed. Perhaps one of these players could have been, you know, I mentioned this when we talked about this earlier in the year, you know, Billy Ortiz or Billy Clase, perhaps they owe some money to some bad people.
mhm.
Again, these are both players who are from, not in the United States. And perhaps there's, they needed to, um, you know, for one reason or another, fell in with the wrong crowd. So I kind of feel like, and maybe this is just me being naive, I wonder if there's something else going on here other than
that had,
just dollars.
that had crossed a lot of people's minds, including myself. I feel like we would have learned that today if that was the
Mm.
case. I think that would have been included in the reporting. It still could. Maybe that'll come out in the next few days. Who knows? The other thing I'll mention, and I think I might have mentioned this in the show before when we talked about this, is I know for a fact that Ortiz comes from his family didn't have money. They're, I remember hearing a story about him at like 15 years old, working in the quit baseball because working in the fields because they needed his mom needed money, and his mom discouraged him from that and said, "No, you have a gift here. You need to go play baseball." So like, there was obviously some financial decisions he had to make in his life, and I do kind of wonder if maybe some people back home still maybe aren't in the best financial situation. He was trying to make some easy money, but does not excuse the situation. And you know what? They aren't the only two guys in the league that maybe have come from lower means, and that means two things. One, everybody else is apparently not doing this, but also there's the opportunity that other people could be doing this, and it's just that whole thing of you know kind of the mask is coming off with this kind of thing now in
And I
2025.
don't
It's
mean to
become more
say that
prevalent.
any of what I said would be an excuse. I just my
It
my
it
something
definitely
else
helps
might be
rationalize.
going on. Detectors are going off.
No, I think that's entirely fair, Sam. I do think it would be a consideration. I think people would look at this scenario a little bit differently, myself included, if we learned that. The last thing I just want to say real quick, from the MLB side, there was a different story this week about somebody from the league office suggesting that maybe somebody will end up in a ditch. I don't know if you guys followed that story at all.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That kind of rhetoric should be existing for this kind of thing, not for that kind of thing. And I don't mean that literally. I don't want anybody ending up literally in a ditch, but metaphorically speaking, this has to be something that gets taken to the utmost concern. And it's very hard for that to be the case when leagues have relationships with betting companies. And maybe that helps in a way because those betting companies are incentivized to call out illegal gambling because it helps themselves. But it's
I
a very tenuous situation we find ourselves in, and I hope that Major League Baseball will not just take it seriously, but express that and perform in such a way that they're showing that they take it seriously too.
This is
and
going
I
to be
don't.
kind of a reach, but okay, just because we're talking about maybe they have family and okay. So in the 2000s and 2010s, I don't know if it's still going on. I wouldn't be surprised, but there was like a rash of kidnappings in Venezuela, or like what MLB players they would be kidnapped or their family members would be threatened and stuff like that. And it was a big deal. And I like Miggy has talked about it before, where he's like, I'm tired of having to pay people not to kidnap my family. I mean, I wonder if there is something going on. because both of them are from both of them are from the Dominican Republic. It just seems weird for Class A to be like, hey friend, how about we get into some illegal gambling for an extra 10K? Like it is weird, but for if there's not something else going on.
Well, and I think one of the things is, and this is something that I very much disagree with the idea of, well, now sports betting is legal, so it's regulated, and the sports books can step in and they can, say if there's suspicious activity. Sure, but the problem with that is when sports betting was illegal, a first pitch of the third inning ball or strike market did not exist, right? If you wanted to bet that,
Amen.
no one would take that bet, right? Because they would say, oh, you have a guy who's going to throw a ball on the first pitch? No thanks. And in the same way, a Terry Rozier under rebounds market probably for a regular season game probably did not exist prior to legalized sports betting. So I think we need to see some restrictions, and especially with basketball and with pitchers, you can very easily manipulate an over-under on your prop bets. Maybe not so much as the over. I mean, I guess a basketball player could say, hey guys, I'm crashing the boards tonight. I'm gonna get over 8.5 rebounds. But I think we need to go. These things need to be like one-way markets where you can only bet the over.
That's interesting.
Or it needs to be, we need to get rid of and we need to get rid of silly bets like the first pitch of the third inning on the June 25th game between the Guardians and the Mets or whoever.
Bets that can be easily manipulated by human involvement.
So easily.
Like one of some of the bets, I guess, were Clase throwing a pitch over 95 miles an hour. Like that's ridiculous. Who's betting on the first pitch is going to be over 94.5?
I mean, to me,
come on.
and even then, like Clase throws 98 pretty consistently, or
that's so easy.
He's still like the story would be
really
if he throws a 93 in there and bets the under would be like, but that's easy. That is easy for him to manipulate himself. It's one thing to say like, I'm gonna bet that Ty France is going to hit a home run. That's entirely different. Unless the pitcher underhands the ball to the hitter, there's no reason to think Ty France or anyone is going to get a home run in the Pacific area.
Eric, if you're betting on Ty France to hit a home run, you're a bad gambler, dude. I got some. You're giving away money, my guy.
Multiple things can be true at once. I never said I was a good gambler, but just as the example. But yeah, I think Foolish Bailey, if anyone watches him, he had a good video about a month or two ago, and he was basically, I mean, he did it as like a satire. He was saying like baseball shouldn't get in the way of some gambling good fun. But his message was basically, all right, the takeaway I took from it was, if you're going to gamble, there shouldn't be any prop bets involved. And then also you should have to go you should be able to only bet when you're in the stadium. And like, I do like that idea. The more I like it, you have to go there. It can't just be readily available on your phone. Will they do that? No, because Lee and Sam, where are the Tigers being broadcast from? What's the sports network name?
FanDuel
Sports Network, which the Royals just picked up the option for next year.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah,
with FanDuel Sports Network.
I was shocked. I went to my friend's house last night, and we were trying to watch the Cavs game on the FanDuel app. And it turns out that app for watching the Cavs game is the exact same login as when we had done like a daily fantasy 3 years ago. Like it's the same account. And that to me is just weird. Like I just want to watch the game. This thing I did 3 years ago one time doesn't have anything to do with this, but he needed to use the same login. That's not the point.
I've seen comparisons of like, it's like people could just walk around with a bag of meth in their pocket because it's like addiction wise. You can just get it on your phone all the time.
Gambling is horrifically addictive. It's no different than substance abuse, in my opinion. And by the way, it's one of the most likely addictions that leads to suicide. So there's that going for it. But also, these gambling books are making so much money that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're able to grease whoever's palms they need to allow themselves to do what they want to do. Now, interestingly, you guys were talking about micro bets. The state of Ohio does have a bill that is being looked into by our General Assembly about these micro bets and potentially bringing them to an end here in Ohio. Because we're ground zero for apparently one of these scenarios. But
Or now.
I don't know if that will get passed or not. That's still, like I said, just a bill
Yeah.
at this point in time.
By the way, guys, should I bet on Lamar Jackson to have 10 plus rushing yards in the fourth quarter of today's game against the Minnesota Vikings? The odds are plus 132 on my FanDuel app for Lamar Jackson to have 10 plus rushing yards in the fourth quarter.
That same Cavs game yesterday, they had third quarter. Here's the third quarter spread just for the third quarter. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and additionally, it really peeved me off this year. Like a day after this Clase and Ortiz news broke, we were doing the Bet365 bet of the game or whatever. I'm like, can we not just give it a rest for a day
When
with this news?
No.
When
They
ESPN was
can't
talking
because
about
they
the
have a
NBA mafia
contract.
thing or whatever, they removed their sidebar with the ESPN bet. It's like
That was so funny. The middle of Mike Greenberg talking, they changed that lower third.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like they know, but they also don't care because it makes them too much money.
Right. And I guess like there will be a tipping point in this scale to where at some point public perception will kind of tip that in the way. But like at what point it's not Class A and it's not now. Like there's still going to be prop bets. They're still going to go harder into this gambling. But there is another end of this pendulum swing. And I kind of wonder where it eventually ends up because this is still relatively new. This is less than 3 years into it. 2 or 3.
It was 2018 when the Supreme Court made sports gambling legal, and then it's kind of been state by state for when you can gamble in your specific state.
But it seems like it does seem like to me that that's been, especially in like the last 3 or 4 years. Like
Yes.
it really has exploded. Where it's just a you can't go anywhere without getting a promo code for FanDuel, or you can't go anywhere without whatever. Like I don't know. Like gambling's
half
not
of the
going away.
ads I get on YouTube are the same tool FanDuel ads, which are very annoying, or BetMGM. Like it's everywhere. And like one of the things that really annoys me in sports is when people will talk about like the MVP race or who's going to win the division, they always give the gambling odds. It's like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is plus 500 to win the MVP. It's like, why are we talking about gambling odds when we're talking about stuff like that? I don't know, that pisses me off. It's annoying.
I'm really not against gambling, but I'm getting to the point where I just have a sour attitude towards it. Like the deeper we get into this,
we're in the wild west of this right now,
I agree.
and I think that we're going to definitely see some type of restrictions within the next few years. But I think right now it's very much the early days, the wild west of sports gambling.
I'm skeptical this ever gets restricted.
You're probably right. I'm hopeful.
Yeah. It would take something big. Like we were so close with Otani's translator thing. We were very close to getting that stuff banned. Because
I think you could have a giant scandal in one of these sports, and just we're so siloed with how we get our news these days and what opinions we listen to. I think half the country would still think that either didn't matter, or they were disinterested in, or they think it's fake.
It's going to take an act of Congress.
Yeah.
And good luck. I don't.
Yeah.
They can't even agree to open right now. That with MLB, it's going to make a worse product. So they need to work with these sports books to track and verify that we're not seeing crazy spikes in the bets that are being made in certain markets. And I think that's something that they're really going to start focusing in on. It, once again, as you all stated, it's not going away anytime soon. But to keep the product on the field right and competitive, they need more precautions in place.
They'll do what they can to protect their sport. I guess, and you're talking to someone who watches professional wrestling, so let's maybe take what I say with a grain of salt here. But I don't think MLB, they care about the what's in the bank account. How the product on field product is almost secondary after what's in the bank. So Ty, I do agree with you, but there is a pendulum slip, but they need to have their sport be credible. But I think if they're gonna, have a few $1 million less or have a crappier product, they're gonna take the money. I think.
Can I bring up one? I'm being a doomer now. This is, I don't even necessarily believe this, but this is my nightmare. It's the World Series. DraftKings is the partner for MLB, right? Doesn't really matter. We'll say it is.
They are now.
The CEO of DraftKings calls up Mr. Manfred, says, "Hey, we really appreciate this partnership we've had. I think it's been fruitful for both of us. I know our contract is ending at the end of next year. I hope we can kind of come to a new deal. Oh, by the way, Game 4 tomorrow night. A lot of people sure bet the under on home runs. You know how you guys sometimes use those more springy baseballs and sometimes use those more deadened baseballs?
Yeah.
Never mind. I don't mean anything by that. Talk to you later, Mr. Manfred." Stuff like that.
Or maybe you'll see the backside of it.
As much as I find that humorous, Stan, I don't think anything as blatant as that would happen.
No,
because
it would
tracked back so easily.
It wouldn't be done so out in the open in the way that it would be more subtext and subtle. Nobody's really making a phone call like that between parties, but that kind of thing can happen potentially. I'm not saying it does, but it could. And again, you put yourself in this position by building these relationships in the first place, and you open yourself up to that kind of concern.
There was an article last year. So I'm getting a little bit into NFL. There was an article last year about how the Lions were making a lot of gambling areas lose money because they kept clearing the over by a lot, and it would cause it would basically lose them money. And there were sources that say, we are very nervous about the Lions because because of this. And there were a lot of people who were this isn't good because if Vegas is against the law. I mean, it was all conspiracy stuff, but it was just the idea that people think that can happen isn't a good thing for the sport. Yeah, and there was another thing last year of there was a quote from someone in Vegas who was if the Tigers win the World Series, that would be very bad for us. And that's why is this a topic of conversation of Vegas doesn't want this team to win because it would lose them a lot of money. That shouldn't be a thing.
Now, alternatively, I will say one of my favorite pastime. I'm exaggerating, but I always got a chuckle out of years ago. I'd go on Reddit for the World Series game threads, and there'd be people in there going, "Oh, well, they fixed it to go 7 games again." And it always made me happy when the series ended in 5 because I never had to hear from those people. But the point I'm trying to make is that people have thought things are rigged even 20 years ago.
Yep.
So some people are always going to default to that, and a lot of that's a lot of hoopy as well. So
you're right.
Tim Donaghy was
think
convicted.
I just don't.
Yeah. Okay.
I just think it's bad when people if Vegas doesn't want X team to win. That's bad because I don't know.
There is a bit of low hanging fruit there. Anytime your team gets screwed over, a bad call, it's very easy to be "Oop, Vegas must have wanted the ball" or something. It's an easy call where now this gives it credibility. But we should probably at least talk about what this means for the Guardians, and specifically they now need to replace maybe a top 5 reliever in baseball, and then just traded for a young, promising starting pitcher. So we'll just I just brought up their baseball reference page. I've been showing it on the screen off and on here. But Dan, how badly does this screenshot hurt that you're missing it? And granted, these are just 2025 stats and just until July.
Well, Clase was arguably the best relief pitcher in the sport, despite the fact that he was purposely throwing a ball every so often. Which, hey, probably maybe the Mariano Rivera level reliever if he wasn't doing that, who knows? But I will remind everybody that the Guardians were third in bullpen FIP after his departure this past year. They were able to pick up the slack. I do think that Cade Smith is a little bit miscast as a closer. I think he is better suited for kind of the fireman role he was in when Clase was around. Guardians are going to have a decision to make on their hands. They can go a couple of different ways with that pen next year. They can kind of leave Smith in that closer role. They could go maybe try to find a closer on the open market, which I think is actually maybe an interesting way to spend some of that about $30 million they could potentially have available to them. Or they can kind of just backfill with, lower level arms and try to just kind of lift everybody up one, spot on the ledger. Any of those are potential options for them. I really would think it would be interesting to maybe bring in like a Ryan Helsley or a Devin Williams, somebody that they can kind of reclaim and can kind of, didn't have a great year last year. They could work with, maybe get a little bit of a discount and fit into that closer's role. As far as Ortiz goes, that closes the book on the Andres Jimenez trade, which Jimenez was basically what he was in Cleveland for Toronto this past year. He was a great defensive middle infielder, but his bat was just as impotent as it was here in Cleveland. So I do think it's awful that he was kind of Ortiz was the main acquisition the Guardians made in 2024's offseason. And you were kind of hoping that he'd give you years of production as a quality starting pitcher. The way I kind of viewed that trade when it happened last year was, well, if Luis Ortiz starts in a playoff game for the Guardians, this was a success. And obviously that didn't happen, and now it's never probably going to happen. So I look at that trade as just as a failure without getting into kind of the feelings of why it's a failure. And I do think the team is able to bounce back from these losses. They played their best ball last year when those guys weren't even on the roster. I don't think that's completely an aberration. And, the team mentally prepared themselves to not have these guys since that news broke last year. And so I don't think they're in the worst position they could be. I don't think they were fooling themselves that they were going to get either of these guys back. So it's just an awful obstacle to have to overcome. But, you lose pitchers sometimes for more innocent reasons, injury, ineffectiveness. But at least kind of this Band-Aid can be ripped off and we know what we're without moving forward, hopefully.
I want to say one thing. I think it's very funny that Clase has been doing this since 2023, and then Ortiz joins, and a month later they get caught.
And
absurd.
Well, I'll pull up the video one more time, but I'm going to assume Ortiz, and if you look at he had like an 11% walk rate, which is not ideal. I mean, these pitches are pretty, just what he gets investigated with. The second pitch is really bad. He couldn't have been more of a red flag. That one, the first one isn't too bad, but this second pitch really had to be okay, something's going on here. I'm going to think Clase has a little bit more control considering he throws a cutter with.
Even just looking at his delivery on that pitch, it didn't look to me. Now I'm not Carl Willis. I'm not that level of pitching coach, obviously, but he doesn't put his body into that pitch at all. And I'd like to see him just throw a normal pitch and see how it kind of compares. A middle of the inning type pitch, but he doesn't. His mechanics look horrible here.
Yeah,
because remember, Ortiz was the first one originally indicted, and then it was Clase after that.
Yep.
So
well, that's just
is you're right, Lee. I think that's the case. He did something to get them found out.
So, I mean, we'll see. It sucks for both of the. I mean, I don't necessarily have the sympathy for them. I was the one during the season that was. I still struggle with. I don't think you suspend them unless you have actual credible evidence against it. Clearly, they did. but I did have a hard time with them taking, even though it was paid, being suspended, because you're just, to me, that's a little bit too far. You either have something and you suspend them right now, or you let them play it out. But they're gonna, like, I think I just saw in the article, they're facing each 60 years in jail for what they did. And
Does anybody know where Clase is? I know that they said they have not. He's not in custody at this point in
he's
time.
not in
I
Brooklyn.
assume the Dominican. Like that would be my guess, but I don't know.
I do.
Until they extradite to the U.S.
Yeah, I was
There's
just
a
about
point
to
of
say some country that doesn't extradite. That's where Clase should go.
I
As
think
a point of
Clase would
closure on
really
this-
would really look odd in Saudi Arabia. He might stick out.
I hope we end up getting the full story on this. I hope they see their day in court, all that stuff. I'm hoping there's some more closure here. I hope we hear the full story. If it was a bribery thing or if it was somebody was getting threatened, I do want to know that. I do think that context matters. Like
As
Sam
I've
was alluding
said previously, I can't wait for 15 years from now when we get the 30 for 30 on the 2025 Cleveland Guardians season and the
Really,
tell-all.
at this point, the whole season is an interesting story. I'll say
yeah.
that. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
I think if there's a 30 for 30, it's going to be, and it was just the start with Ortiz and Clase.